welcome back to the Uncensored Mothers podcast. I'm co-host Marie-Laure and I'm with my co-host Aireen Joy. We have a guest today and I'm so delighted to welcome Sabrina Fletcher, the TFMR doula. This is very personal for me. Juliet's death is recognized as a stillbirth. She died during labor because I had preeclampsia and my health was deteriorating very, very quickly. And we know she was not going to survive. And we had to make some decision. And I did, every time I was talking about her death, I was like, it's not stillbirth. It never felt like it's stillbirth because I had a decision to make. And it's not until I met Sabrina that I realized that it was TFMR that I went through and it finally made sense. So I am so grateful to you, Sabrina, for the conversations we had about my story and what happened to me with Juliet. And I know a lot of your work that you do in supporting mothers and people who go through TFMR and also making sure that TFMR, which is termination for medical reason, is being recognized in the loss space, the loss community. So we're so grateful for all of that and so happy to have you on the podcast today. I'd love for you to, as an introduction, tell us more about your journey to motherhood and to your work as a TFMR doula.
Oh, thank you. And thank you, Marie-Laure and Aireen Joy. Thank you. Thanks for having me on and having this conversation about, like you said, this type of pregnancy loss that really isn't talked about a lot, even in the baby loss community. So when you go through a TFMR, people can be saying your abortion, or they might be saying stillbirth or induced, or for me, everybody kept saying your procedure, your procedure. And yes, there is a procedure. Yes, it is also legally an abortion. Yes, you can also fall under the category of stillbirth or induced miscarriage. All of those things are happening at the same time. And I think that that's like where our brains start to break a little bit, because it's this crossover. We fit into so many different boxes, and yet we feel like there's no specific box for us. You can feel very isolated even within the grief and baby loss community. So that's the work that I do, helping people speak about their losses, typically in closed, specific for TFMR spaces, because we need to be around other people who have gone through this particular type of loss because of all of the different aspects of it, the political, the societal, the anger that many of us find when we finally, or if we decide to post our story online. Sometimes the haters show up and they're like, you need to repent, you did something awful, you're a monster, you're a horrible mother. And let me just say, we're already thinking those things about ourselves when we've gone through a baby loss. Like, we are the hardest of anyone. Like, I was the hardest on myself of anyone around me. Like, what did I do? Could I have done something different? Where did this go wrong? Could I have advocated more? Maybe there was another way. What if? So then when there's this societal, very religious, it's like Christian nationalist movement to say what you've done is wrong, and like basically like they would like to kill us or throw us in jail. How are you supposed to grieve under those circumstances? It makes it so hard, because grieving is already hard. It's already so hard in society, in our capitalistic, like, go, like, get back to work, like, be productive, do something good for the society. Good. Like, go be a capitalist cog again and hurry up, get back to it. Like, don't worry that you're bleeding. Don't worry that you're still having like postpartum cramps. Don't worry that you're still healing a wound this size in your uterus. No. Just get back to it. Just get back to it. And then when there's this other layer, it just gets so complicated. And that's why everything I do is specifically for the TFMR community, because we need these spaces where we're not getting all of this outside junk sort of layered on top of us, because we're already internally working through the layers of junk. No, I mean, you really start to see just how anti-woman, anti-family, the whole like medical, like quick, fast system is. Like it's even anti that for our providers who are trying to provide for us. Where's their, healthcare and daycare and help with their families so that they can also then be a good nurse, a good doctor to us. Like we're being failed left, right, front, center, and nowhere do you feel that more when there's a baby loss. Like we're forgotten. Like mothers are already forgotten postpartum. They're already like the babies, like when the babies live, of course, the baby has a checkup every 2 weeks, every month, every whatever for the first year. And what do we get? We get one checkup when our hormones are still like whacking out. Like things have
And
not even
even
fully settled yet. If you're going
and
to
we
have
still
some
at
sort
risk
of,
of
sorry, go ahead.
sorry, we still at risk of fatal health complication in a year postpartum. And like, as somebody who had preeclampsia, somebody who had pericardium cardiomyopathy, which I was just diagnosed a week postpartum, like some women, they have these like preeclampsia is up to 6 weeks, pericardium cardiomyopathy, which is heart failure of pregnancy, it's up to a year. And we don't know the symptoms. We don't even know exist. And we are completely forgotten, as you say, like we have a 6-week checkup. All is good. Go on your merry way. Yeah. And if you're on Medicaid, not all states provide Medicaid coverage once the baby's born. They're starting to do some states are starting to do a year of coverage after for the mother, but it's not always the case. And which is like when we are most vulnerable.
Yeah, and I've seen the advocacy that you do for, the follow-up. If there was preeclampsia, eclampsia, if that has happened in pregnancy, you need very specific heart care for the rest of your life. And I didn't know that until you started sharing about those things. We don't talk about those things. And that's life and death. Like this is literally life and death.
And if you want to get mad, I
I'm
didn't
mad.
know about it. I didn't know about it until the Preeclampsia Foundation talked about it. Like the doctors don't even tell you like, hey, this is a diagnosis for the rest of your life. And I'm lucky in a way, quotation mark on lucky here, because I had the heart condition. So now I have a cardiologist and I'm being followed. But I have a friend who did not. She had preeclampsia, and her primary care physician, she had preeclampsia twice, both pregnancies. One baby did not live and the other did. And the doctor, a primary care physician, told her, all right, this is a pregnancy complication. You're not going to get pregnant again. So we should remove it from your medical history. And it's like that follows you the rest of your life. The preeclampsia has an impact on your health. And doctors don't know that. And it's crazy. And we're not told. So we can't advocate for ourselves.
I follow these different, I think it's just like the pregnancy journal. But there's another one that they post about obstetrics and gynecology and all the research and journals. And I'm always hoping when I get an email that there's going to be some mention of TFMR or pregnancy complications that then end in the babies dying. They like rarely talk about baby loss, TFMR, abortion care, DNC. I've seen like one in like the last 2 years that I've followed their journal. And this is happening. This is happening way more than we talk about it. And then even within their fields, I don't think it's coming up. It's not even coming up for them in their research material. And I think there's probably less research is getting funded because, we don't want to think about dead babies. We don't want to think about abortion. But this is happening. These are the real pregnancy complications that are happening.
Yeah. And research right now, it's unfortunately not where we're going to. They have in the United States, they have created some research funds for maternal health. But if you've seen some of it, when organization researchers tend to really advocate for making sure we research, like the research happened in the most vulnerable population. And we know Black women are the highest risk of some pregnancy complications. They kind of remove that. So it's up to the researchers. I work in research. That's my day job. It's really hard out there.
Hard to get funding. So then it's spoken about less. And then we think, and then I think we have this false idea that because it's not talked about, it's not happening. Like before I went through my baby loss, I thought stillbirth was a thing of the past. I thought like that word even sounds like it's from the 1800s. Like, oh, that's something that happened in the 1800s and before modern medicine. And now they can do these different, like, take the baby out of the uterus and do these crazy like fetal surgeries and then put the baby back in, and they fixed it all. Where no, it is not all fixed. It is still happening, and the rates are rising, actually, especially in the US, because of the racism inherent and misogyny inherent in these fields. And it makes sense, because if you look at the beginning of gynecology, it was based on the torture of Black enslaved women. So that is where we created the field. So how are they going to get away from that? I don't know. It's a big problem, and now we have even more problems in the US and in all these different countries that have, different levels of abortion being banned. Well, abortion care is pregnancy loss care. They are the exact same procedures. It's a D&C or it's a D&C. It's a D&E or it's a D&E. It's the pills that help expel the pregnancy, or it's the pills that help expel the pregnancy. It's inducing labor in the same way with Pitocin, and it's the same. They are the exact same procedures. But now, and of course, so many doctors are afraid to even study this field of abortion care. They're afraid to study it. So less of them are specialized, like less and less and less specialists. So then when something does happen, we're seeing a less specialized care when we need the most specialized care. And I just don't understand, because loss is happening in 1 in 4, 1 in 3 pregnancies in the early trimester. And then, it's not even a low number when you get through to the stillbirth numbers. It's 1 in 160, but that's the old number from before Roe versus Wade. That's the old number. Who knows what it is now? 1 in 100? And in some populations, it's going to be even higher. And these are the systemic things that we are up against, when I just wanted to be seen as a grieving mother. I'm sorry about your baby. I wanted someone to say, like, here, as they handed me the tissues, to be like, anything but what wasn't said to me. Because in my case, we found out in the 11 to 14 week scan that something was wrong with my baby. So earlier than both of your losses. But even there, the doctor said, well, after explaining so much about what he was saying, and he was very kind, and I even went back to him when I was pregnant again, because I thought, if someone's going to give me bad news, I want it to be him, right? Like the thoughts that we have when we're in a pregnancy after loss, they're real, raw, like dark thoughts, right? So if something was going to go wrong, or if the baby was dead, or if I had to have another TFMR, if there was another diagnosis, I wanted it to be him. But after telling us that he was seeing this high drop swelling, cystic hygroma, no nasal bone, he thought maybe something was wrong with the heart. Maybe our baby had T21, some other trisomy. Maybe they could have had Turner syndrome. We didn't know the underlying cause or condition. I still don't know, because of all of this systemic crap. He said, like right there, after he had explained, he said, but if you're going to interrupt the pregnancy, that was the way he described it. If you're going to interrupt the pregnancy, you need to decide now. And I was like, what? Like, I had a week to decide. I had a week to gather no extra information, really, because I couldn't do a CVS. It wasn't really common back then. That was back then. It's not even that long ago, 2018. And I live in Mexico, just to clarify where this was happening. So even in my pregnancy after loss, I had to seek out like a private lab that then would send my blood work to another lab in LA to get NIPT testing for my next pregnancy. But it wasn't even offered, and it was like, well, we're already seeing like the worst of it. So like, if you have to decide now. And I think there's so much rushing already that happens with pregnancy loss and baby loss, stillbirth, even miscarriage of all kind, early loss. So much rushing when we need someone to like, okay, let's look at like someone who has their head on straight. And I think the nurses and the doctors, sometimes they're like, because I think they got into this field because they want to hold babies. They want to help carry live babies. They love babies. But you know what? Part of pregnancy is also sometimes the baby dies. Part of pregnancy is also sometimes the pregnancy ends. And we almost need more care when that happens, like more emotional, like emotionally full and holding care. So because of all of this, what I went through, and then when I was sitting in the chair post-op, I had pre-op, I had this sensation of like, oh, I was thinking, where's my doula? Where's that emotional support person? No one was there. Like I said, the nurse like handed me tissues and just turned away. Didn't say a word. Didn't know how to comprehend my tears as a grieving mother, as yes, this is an abortion. This is also a pregnancy loss. They just didn't have that like track for me to be on, which is so weird because I imagine, I've never been through an abortion just for lifestyle or it's not the right timing. I've never been through that experience, but I imagine that some people going through that experience are going to cry too, or have emotions, or have any emotions. Like you're allowed to have emotions when you're going through something. Like we're allowed to have emotions. But anyway, I was sitting there and so alone and thinking, where's my doula? And then I realized, oh, this is the type of doula. It was almost like this, like from an outside source, like you're going to be this type of doula. Okay, I'm going to be this type of doula. So that's how I got into this work, because I was there alone. And I imagine that both of you, you started this podcast because you went through it, and then like, who's talking about these things,
Right.
So we're all here trying to fill these gaps that are gaping hole canyons.
Canyons for sure. Just Grand Canyon at this point. Oh my gosh, Sabrina. I got chills when you were saying how it was like the outside source telling you like this is your calling now, Sabrina. Like this is what you're meant to do. Oh my gosh, I got chills. Because very few moments in people's lives do they get that this is meant for you, whether you like it or not. This is your calling. And that's really inspirational that you leaned into it, because a lot of people don't lean into it. I know I didn't lean into it at first, like I couldn't emotionally accept. As a life coach, you're going to be a grieving life coach. You're going to be teaching yoga for, people. You're going to teach mindfulness or that. Because for me, I was pregnant and had a yoga company. So for me, everything was already triggering, and I didn't want to go back to my calling.
Yeah.
And so for you to embrace that, so huge. That's huge.
Yeah. Can I ask you how long it took you to make that shift, or going through then
So
saying, okay, I will? Because for me, it took a couple
6
years too. So yeah. How
6 years.
long? 6? Yeah.
6
Yeah,
years.
because you had to go through your own process first. And I think that's the best way, because how can we help someone else if we're not fully filled up with our understanding of what we've been through, and with our healing or therapy or the holistic, or like finding the right yoga, finding, I did a bunch of acupuncture, I did EMDR therapy before I even thought of like, okay, let's have a TFMR circle. No, I had to take that time for me.
And how long was that? How long was your healing journey from your loss to you're going to do this and be the TFMR doula? How long was that?
It was at least 2 years. And then that last year was like, what does it mean to be a doula, and doing training and stuff. And then I started the Facebook group, Marie-Laure, that you were one of the first people who joined the Facebook group. I think you were like one of the first 10. Weren't you? Like, do you remember how many people were in there when you first joined?
I don't remember. It was 2021. I don't remember.
So our heads were all, wow.
People were in it, but yeah, it was pretty small, and it's grown so much. And it's sad to see it grow, right? You don't want anyone else to join. And at the same time, it really shows how much of a resource this is and how needed it is. I mean, every day you have people posting, several times a day, people are posting and sharing and asking questions and venting, and I've done that myself too at times. And there's always like so much support and love. And Sabrina, what you created, I mean, it's so needed and so powerful. It's a safe space where I don't really feel any judgment there. And I'd love to talk more about this, like TFMR. It means so many things. Like mine was for maternal health complication. If I had been, if my daughter if Juliette had not been growth restricted at 25 weeks, they could have done a C-section and put her in the NICU. And she would, if she had been over a pound, or 2 pounds, like some babies are at that age, and maybe she could have lived. But for us, he was like, and that's very different from someone who may have a fatal diagnosis and the baby's not going to survive, with a person who may have a great diagnosis. Or T21 is very common. I think it's one that we see a lot on the group, but I think you can connect with people who have similar diagnoses, or people who, even with different diagnoses, there's still a connection because there's still some similarities. I think at the end, we all grieving mothers, and we all have to make a heartbreaking decision.
Yeah. Yeah. If you got a heartbreaking diagnosis in your wanted pregnancy and then you had to make a decision, the group is for you. I try and say that over and over and over again because, like you said, when it's for maternal health reasons, then you feel like, oh, I didn't get a fatal diagnosis in my baby, so do I belong here? And then sometimes people even need to end a wanted pregnancy because of mental health reasons. So, mental health is already so stigmatized and it's like separated from the body, which I'm like, that's the brain. What do you mean? What do you mean that's not a health issue? Yes, it is a health issue. And yes, you are so welcome here. And then sometimes people worry if the diagnosis that their baby had was gray, survivable, do they also belong? And yes, and one of the things that the doctor told me, I asked him, the prognosis, and he said in his whole career, and he's a MFM, so that's maternal fetal medicine. That's the higher level specialist that any of us would be sent to if we're being seen by OBGYN, and then some, like, the big complications come up. Like, he's the pregnancy complications doctor. And he said of his whole career, he had only seen 2 babies where everything that he was seeing on the ultrasound for us, like, this condition resolved, and then they were born and they're fine. But even still, I think, like, well, what if she was one of those 2? So even with fatal, like, it's still gray, and it's still like, we don't know. And all these factors, like you were saying, if only it would have happened, like, if only she would have waited a little bit more, if only I could have held out 3 more days to get to the next week.
I know for me, like, the what if I had given her, what if we had put her in the NICU and she would have did the odds? That stuck with me and still today. I mean, I'm like tearing up saying this. So obviously it's still with me today. Like, what if we did not have we were not rushed to make a decision because we were in the hospital, and I was able to say, and I'm an amazing team that was on board with let's wait and see, if I decide that we will not put her in the NICU, then we had more time because I had accepted that she could be stillborn, and that gave us more time as long as my health, obviously I was very closely monitored for that. But many times, like, what if, because you read stories, right? There's like the miracle baby that was born at 8 ounces, whatever it was. I know there was one that was like much smaller than she was and survived. And it's like, what if she had survived? And then it's like remembering why you made the decision. And I know for me, like, that's what I'd go back to, is like, I did not want her to die alone. I did not want her to suffer. I did not want her to be cold. And that's really stuck with me, was the cold. Like, I don't know why in my head she was going to be cold, and I did not want her to be cold. And it's like, if you live for 5 minutes and you live cuddled by your parents, and that's it. And so, I mean, this is where, like, if I had someone who, like you, Sabrina, the work that you do, like, who's there to explain to me the decision, the way that a doula, and I had a doula, I had an actual, your birth doula, and she did an amazing job. She did what she could, but I was her first client to go through this. And, and it's like, well, we need to add another doula. And we had an amazing team, an amazing fellow, neonatal fellow that took the time to explain everything. I think you cannot get enough support going through pregnancy loss, no matter the type of loss. I think it's like, there's no such thing as too much support.
And I think that's a good point, Marie, because there's so many providers and nurses, right? And they have their jobs, like a general OBGYN, right? A maternal fetal medicine. They all have their specialties. They all have their general. Doulas too. You have a birthing doula, and then we don't have like what Sabrina does with focusing on TFMR, because what you're doing, Sabrina, is so needed. Like the fact that you helped Marie through that, and that, and then the process of it, and then the mentals of it, right? Like we're forgetting that women have to like openly acknowledge, like, yeah, I'm having a TFMR, right? So same thing with me. And I talked about with Marie about like, I had a blighted ovum, and the no baby ever developed. Everything formed but the baby. And I was living in Alabama at the time. So the Roe versus Wade was so that's not what this podcast episode is about. But in my experience, I didn't know it was TFMR. It is TFMR. Like I had to get the abortion pill in one pharmacy in the Alabama city I was in. I'm not going to say which one, but talking about this, yeah, it was definitely TFMR. Talking with Marie, yeah, I've had a TFMR. Have I been able to say that out loud until now? Absolutely not. Right? I've said, oh, I've had a miscarriage, or I couldn't even say abortion because I'm very religious. So for me, it's very taboo to be religious and then say that. And I was afraid of going septic. I already had a significant loss. And then the one thing, the OBGYN, again, she's general. You're in the South. She's like, let me pray over you before we make a decision. I'm faithful. I don't need prayers. I needed what you said, Sabrina. I'm sorry. This sucks. This is bullshit. This is BS. This is not the way it's supposed to be. Right? I didn't get that though. And it's not until now. And I hope listeners can be like, oh, I'm with Aireen. I hear that. Like, yeah, I had a blighted ovum. No baby ever formed. Everything formed, but I still had to pass it. Right? I still had to have that abortion pill. That's still hard for me to say out loud at this moment. It's still the truth. It doesn't make me a bad mom. It doesn't make me a bad Christian. It doesn't make me a bad woman. I was just trying to survive in a state that didn't give me the options to survive in the best way, except for so just thank you, Sabrina, for everything you're doing. Because this is that's why you're here.
Yeah. And we're seeing more and more that people in situations like this, like it's a wanted pregnancy, it's an early miscarriage, it's, threatened miscarriage. They have all these different terms, right? They're ending up having to cross state lines, like I did too. Like I had to cross state lines and be seen in an abortion clinic where they have their protocol and pathway for people going through a lifestyle abortion, which is not what we're going through. It's not appropriate to put a pregnancy loss person through that pathway. It's harmful because in the counseling that I got before and after, like there were things that were said in both sessions. This is like the clinic counselor where we went before. I was like obviously distraught. My baby is about to die. I'm having to choose this, and I'm like, trying to express how sad I am. I needed to hear like what you said. I needed to hear like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you're having to go through this. Instead, she was like, think about your life goals. Like basically think about your career. Think about and I'm like, that is not what I'm going through right now. That is not what is happening. That is just, and I know that maybe those words are helpful for someone else who's in that situation. Like that's right for them. That's appropriate for them. That is not appropriate for pregnancy loss and baby loss families. It is harmful. Like I literally got PTSD from that and other things that happened and did not happen throughout the whole thing. And I had to do EMDR therapy, like spend all that money, be traumatized, like live with a traumatized brain because I was shoved into this like corral of like, well, it's an abortion, so you're feeling this, or it's an abortion, so you're feeling nothing. or it's an abortion, so you're feeling, yay, women's lib. I was like, what? And this is happening more and more and more to many pregnancy loss families. They're having this happen in abortion clinics that are not equipped for pregnancy loss families. I mean, I think that all abortions should happen in the maternity surgery ward. All TFMR should happen there with people who know how to handle grief, with people who say, I'm sorry, let me like write you a little card, like did you name the baby? Would you like to speak with the chaplain? Or, like we need all the same things that like someone who has birthed a full-term baby and then they're in the NICU and then there's nothing more that we can do. And now they're going to withdraw care. Well, they give them like a grieving room. They give them a grief midwife. They get to see the social worker who sees like this is a baby loss. But for some reason, when it's during pregnancy, it's like it's just a clump. No, it's not right. We're not being treated. I really think that it's a mental health crisis in families. And honestly, that is why the laws are why they are. They're meant to torture us. They're meant to torture us and have us be traumatized. So then it takes us 3-6 years to talk about it.
It reminds me of a lot of the advocacy you do, the advocacy I know I do too, and around like that baby, they're not clump of cells. Our babies are not clump of cells. And I think that's something politically not accepted by pro-abortion groups. And I know like you've talked about this and I've talked about that, like recognize our losses, recognize our babies. They have names. You cannot just use our stories when you wanted to score political points and then just ignore us. And just the way these stories are written too about abortion, like when it is a TFMR, they don't call it baby loss. It's like, oh, the mother was going to die. It's kind of like we should be grateful that we were able to get rid of our baby because we survived. Even when the article mentioned the name of the baby, mentioned the name, like the mother named the baby and there's a name and it's mentioned. Then you read the conversations around it and it's like, a clump of cell or, and it's not, I remember attending a presentation through a social work school where they talk about abortion and I brought, and all type and being inclusive and all this. And then when I brought up the point of TFMR families, because the word choice was brought up a lot, it's a choice. It's kind of like a freedom thing. And when I brought up the TFMR family and the grief and the babies, I was told like, well, we should seek our own support. And this is from somebody in the abortion world, and it's like, you're not being inclusive. Like you want to be inclusive, but yes, on what is being seen and politically correct of like race and ethnicity and gender. There was inclusion there, but it's like inclusion goes deeper. Inclusion also goes into the pregnancy loss, abortion that doesn't look, we're disruptive, right? We don't fit the narrative of like, my life was so much better afterwards and who am I? Like, like counseling you had was like, think of your life, how traumatizing is it to tell to a mother who's losing her baby, think of your life goal. Like, obviously, imagine your life goals were to have that baby and watch that baby grow up. Like,
obviously, that was my goal in this case. Yeah.
Right. It's like running a marathon is not in your headspace in that moment. Like,
no.
Insane. And I'm sorry that happened to you. You didn't get the care and the support you needed in that moment.
Yeah, I remember when you went to that conference and then posted about it. And I remember when I think you were posting like, I'm going to go to this conference. And I was like, God, I hope she's not holding her breath to think that they're going to talk about TFMR. And then you posted what happened. And I was like, damn it. I hate being right. I hate being right over and over and over again. I hate it. I don't want to be right about this. I don't.
No, and I think like, I post about pro-abortion things and, abortion is medical care and you'll never change my mind on that. I don't care whether someone may have an abortion, but when we talk about, we cannot forget that some especially when it comes to medical complication and some pregnancies, the
Mhm.
babies are loved and wanted. And I know for me, I've loved every single one of those babies from the moment I saw the line. Like, you see that
Yeah.
pink. And even in some cases, even before when you're trying to conceive, you're like, you love that baby because you want that line to turn pink. And so to dismiss it to, oh, it's a clump of cells or your life is going to be better now is so problematic. And that's another taboo, I think, in the abortion world. Like we are a taboo because we don't fit that narrative of it's complicated and complex situation politically doesn't work.
Ugh. Yes, the complicated political part of it. When I was crying in the clinic, I was crying underneath this poster that was like, "Yay, women's freedom." And it's like, I'm not voting, protesting, calling my senator right now. I'm trying to get through a pregnancy loss. So women's liberation is the freedom to not die from a complicated pregnancy. The freedom to parent our children. Because for me, TFMR was parenting that child. It was withdrawing care. But that poster was not it. It's like how in some OBGYN offices they have like pictures of cute babies up on the wall. Like there is more to the uterus than just making a baby. Like some people may be in there for all of these different complications or horrific things that are happening with their hormones, with their uterus, and then like stare at this cute baby. You're there, because it's the 2-week, 6-week postpartum, but your postpartum and your baby died. That's the same type of insensitivity. Like no political stuff in the clinic area, no baby stuff. Just put a picture of a freaking flower or something. Art that exists in the world. You can choose something else.
Yeah.
The ocean. I don't know anything. Anything.
We should have portraits that we sell on Uncensored Mothers for the OBGYN offices. Be like, this is recommended. This is recommended. No,
Yeah.
just kidding. But
What type of flower can you post on your office wall?
just have our lost babies birth flowers up there or something, do something else. But yeah, you're right, Sabrina. Why are we endorsing the perfect chubby babies and the cry, the squishy, I think I've said this before on an episode, but the squishy fat thighs, oh yeah, we love the baby thighs, right? But it's not always about that. It's I always say at the end of a pregnancy, I want a healthy mom and a healthy crying baby. That's what I want. I've said that since my rainbow baby. That's my goal. Healthy mama, healthy baby. That's all I care about, at the end of it. It doesn't, and then it's a friend of mine was like, oh yeah, I just had a baby and my husband was counting, make sure there were 10 fingers and 10 toes. I wouldn't give a damn if Blaylee had 2 fingers and 1 toe. I would have kept her just the same, because she's living. Again, it's these little minute things. Why are we focusing on that when we should focus on the big picture of healthy babies, healthy moms all the way around and anything that comes in between that, right? But we have these providers that get political. We have these offices that have an agenda. And again, we need to remember these moms and these babies, we're all human. We're we're human beings. We're not another statistic. We're not another okay, it was another abortion. No, we're all human.
No. And I just think about people who are in that situation for other reasons. What horrific things are they going through? And then there's this poster that's liberate yourself, woman. And it's let me just get through this day, maybe they actually did want the child, but the partner is abusive and is financially and physically and emotionally abusing them. And now they're you're liberating yourself. Am I?
And I have a big thing with mental load right now and being women. And it's another thing we have to add to the list of things we have to do. Right now,
yeah.
I was yeah, I didn't have enough going on in my life. Yes, let's add this to the list right now.
Yeah. We're trying. We're trying over here. But see, I think that too, it's this hyper individualistic thing where you liberate yourself. No, we're all in this together. The doctors and the hospitals and the systems and the families and the economy, it's all the same thing. And we need so much help with all of it. And we need to do it differently. so that all pregnancy outcomes, like, you see full spectrum doulas, they talk about all pregnancy outcomes. It is rare for me to even look at like a full spectrum doula program, and there's even a mention of TFMR in there. Like, even in the spaces where it's supposed to be about the full spectrum, we're still forgotten. Or the spaces where they're like, all pregnancy loss, miscarriage and stillbirth, miscarriage and still. It's like there are so many, and so many of them fall under this category of abortion. And yeah, and then the pro-abortion side is like, nope, don't talk about your grief, don't call it a baby.
Yeah.
So we've been talking a lot about like the systemic things that we're up against. That does come into play with the way that I support people, but I really see what we've been through as relational wounding, right? We're not related to as mothers. A lot of our intimate relationships may fall apart, feel very tense after TFMR, baby loss. And that's why I always go back to groups. Like, let's come together. Let's be together and talk in the Facebook group. And then a lot of people who are in the Facebook group have also gone through one of my small group programs. So I call those TFMR grief circles. So then we share our stories and we work through like all these ideas about what it means to be a lost mother, a lost parent, to parent in this way, very, very, very gently. A little bit of mindfulness meditation. I'll play some of my singing bowl for them. We'll do Reiki, just helping the mind and the spirit through what we've been through, because it's been crushed. It's been absolutely crushed, right? From left, right, center. It's being crushed in all directions. So what I want to do is I want to bring back, that fullness and that remembrance and that honoring. Like we light our candles together. People say their babies' names out loud. That is the healing. It's a relational wound. So we're going to heal in relationship. I'm going to help cultivate these like healthy, safe relationships between us so that we can heal in this way. A lot of people are very private too, so they might want to work just one-on-one with me, but I still see that too, that like that's a relational healing. They're actually talking to someone who's going to listen to them, who's going to understand the layers of what they've been through and not say, well, at least, or I mean, like a lot of therapists are not trained in grief, or they have this old school idea of the 5 stages of grief. So let's get you through A, B, C, and let's get you to an end point where, there's no end point because it's a relationship. It's the relationship with you, with this being, you with this baby, you with this spirit. I also do spirit baby readings. So this is one part of my story. Maybe I'll have to come on again and just share like this part of my story where I was like deeply in connection and in communication with my baby through the decision, and now even after, the spirit baby communication with my baby. And I believe that we can all do this. I believe, this is just like inherent. Mother, parent can do this because it's your baby. Like the signs and associations that you see, those are real. So I help people through meditations, or I also have a spirit baby connections bundle where they can hear me talk about all these different ways that you can do this on your own. It's so important to remember the spirit in all of it, because our spirit is being smashed into a million pieces through it. Even if you get the best of care, it can still be like cold and clinical, where this is a family experience. This is a mothering experience. So that's the way that I help people, and I do those spirit baby readings now once a month in the TFMR support sanctuary. So those have been really, really beautiful, really touching. And yeah, if you've been through TFMR, these are the spaces for you, especially if you feel like the relationship between you and your baby has been forgotten through all of it. Come and be with us.
Thank you.
Amazing.
I want you back to talk about the spiritual connection, because I think many of us see like I connect with all the signs. I decided like If I see a cardinal, a hummingbird, a feather,
Yeah.
a butterfly, I'll take it. I'm like, that's her. She's right here. It's harder to see a lion in the wild, so that's why I have to connect with like the other signs. But yeah, I'd
Well,
love
that's the
to
king of
have
the
you.
jungle. So I think that, yeah, like the whole animal kingdom, it makes sense. It makes sense.
I love it.
Yeah. And you can trust
But-
that. You can trust that
Yeah, but
because you are her mother.
Exactly. Thank you. And this, yeah, everything you do, like I love what you said. It's a relationship, and so healing with other relationship, learning that such important work. And I know you also do a lot of work with society in general and other lost community and other advocacy group. And I'd love to hear because one of our main goal here is talking about those taboos, and TFMR is such a big one. I know a lot of people, I mean, in the group that in public, they'll say, oh, I had a miscarriage.
Mm-hmm.
Even myself, like, I don't,
Mm-hmm.
I usually say my daughter died during labor. Because it's the truth. She died during labor, and I don't really always go into the nitty gritty of everything. And so, I'd love to hear more about the taboos you've encountered, in the lost communities and how you're working to change that. Like, because you do a very powerful work in there.
Thank you. I think a big part of that advocacy work happens around our annual TFMR Awareness Day. That's when the broader baby
One
loss
day,
community, they feel like, oh, okay, we can reshare this. We can, we're learning through this day. Okay, I can go onto my own website and add in TFMR in a few different places because most places do. They want to learn how to care for all kinds of pregnancy loss. Like I really do. They really do want to care for all types of pregnancy loss, and they want to include us. So yeah, that's every May 4th annually is our TFMR Awareness Day. And then I'd like to bring in anybody who's talking about TFMR specifically and TFMR like as part of the baby loss community onto my podcast as well. So over on our TFMR stories is where some of that advocacy happens. Although the podcast is also it's for the person who's grieving a TFMR. Like that is always my main that I guess that's my main advocacy all the time. Like if your advocacy is not including grief, if your advocacy is not including TFMR, you need to look at that. That's where my advocacy comes in.
we have a few rapid fire questions, trying to keep it brief, but I don't know if fun is the right word. But like I said, like, how do you cope with a hard day?
I light my candle. I always go back to lighting a candle for her because it can just be so forgotten. But something about seeing the little light, I remember like she is a light. Everything that happened around it and like the horror of the ending can sometimes overshadow that. But the light and one little light can light up my whole dark room.
Beautiful.
Amazing.
What's the most surprising thing you heard about TFMR? Can be good, can be bad. Whichever.
Good and bad.
And
Well, I guess something that really surprised me was how well TFMR parents are taken care of in many places in England. Like I always look to their level of care as like this is what we need to be doing all over the planet. Like they have a bereavement suite in many places that's separate from, where the babies and the laboring mothers are doing their thing, so they're not hearing those things.
yeah, that's so important. And I think in countries where TFMR is seen as medical health, like healthcare, I think you may find hopefully more of that. What is the most shocking thing you heard about TFMR?
Well, the most shocking thing has got to be just how angry the trolls can be when people are sharing their like baby loss stories. Sometimes there are these very raw baby loss story posts and then the comments that are happening underneath it. I think a lot of people are very bored and very unhappy with their own lives to be, trolling a grieving family in that way. It still shocks me.
What's something you stopped apologizing for?
I stopped apologizing for calling my baby baby.
That's a good one. She has a baby. And what's the last thing that made you cry?
Last thing that made me cry. Oh, I just watched the movie. I don't know what they've translated it to in English. It's probably called the Big Flood something, or the Biggest Flood. It came out last year and it's on Netflix right now. And I won't give it away, but there's a mother and child theme throughout the whole movie. And I was like, oh.
What is it in Spanish? Because I imagine it's the Spanish title that you...
The Spanish title is El Gran Diluvio. And that is also translated from the Korean. So,
Okay.
it's a Korean film.
I can imagine every country is going to have their own translation of that. It might help to have given the title in Spanish.
Okay.
And to know it's
Yeah.
a Korean movie.
Yeah. If you're trying to find it. I imagine it's the same in English, but since I'm here and have Netflix in Mexico, all the titles are translated.
Right.
Strengths in my relationships that I thought could never survive this. And yet maybe some of the people who I thought would show up for me weren't able to. But then I was wonderfully surprised by people who I never imagined would show up for me. So yes, there are relational ruptures, relational wounding, and there's so much relational healing that I think can happen through baby loss. And the connections, like meeting you, meeting both of you, making these connections, feeling like, yes, I am part of the baby loss community. Yes, I am.
Yes, you are. Yes, we are.
Yes.
Very much so.
Yes.
And well, that goes right into the next question, because how do you honor? How do you remember your baby?
So I have a ring. I don't know if you can see it, with 3 different birthstones. It's like really bright. Maybe there. Yeah, there, you can kind of see it. A ring with 3 different birthstones. So they represent all 3 of my babies, the baby born before my loss, and then the TFMR loss, and then my youngest. And that was a whole process, because my baby who died was born the same month as me, so we share a birthstone. And for a while I was like, why did it have to be in February? I've always loved February. I've always even loved Valentine's Day and my birthday. And for a while, February was just a really hard month. But a few years later, I was like, no, that is her birth month too. Like, we share that. So seeing it as something we share instead of something that I have to grieve and hate forever. No, it's also something that we share. So the middle stone is amethyst for February. And sometimes I don't even want like physical things up. So I like to think I even honor her by like having an altar for her on my heart. And that comes with me everywhere I go.
Yes, it does.
I love that.
I love that, because there's so many beautiful ways to honor and remember a baby, your baby in general. And yeah, they're always so beautiful. So thank you for sharing. Would you like to share the name of your baby?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, her name's Clara.
Clara. Thank you. Thank you for sharing her name with us.
Thank you.
So switching gear a little bit and thinking about the takeaways of everything, like, through your experience with the TFMR, through the work you're doing to advocate, to support, what is the biggest lesson that you've learned?
The biggest lesson that I've learned is just the gratitude and the thankfulness for the people who came before me, who were willing to share their stories out loud, and to name it, because I didn't know what TFMR was before this. And even back in 2018, we hadn't really like fully joined around one term yet. There was ending a wanted pregnancy, terminating, medical termination. But currently, right now, TFMR really feels like a unifying term that, of course, it still has its problems. Like termination can sound so cold and final, and it doesn't fully encapsulate everything that we go through. But just remembering the people who came before and were already telling their stories, even in ways where it was being portrayed as like a political thing. I gobbled them all up. Gobble, gobble. I was ravenous, like so hungry for all of the stories, like refresh on Google. And then like, well, maybe if I search it in this way, abortion, fetal, something, like I gotta find these stories. They were like hidden underneath all these different terms and ways that people, and this is still happening, the way that people talk about it. You read the story and you're like, oh, that's TFMR, but they're not using TFMR in the story, unfortunately. But it is that they are our stories. So forever grateful to them for the grandmas of TFMR who came before me. Just grateful to be able to add to those voices and share our stories. It's why I named my podcast Our TFMR Stories. Yes, I share mine there all the time, and I also bring you've been on my podcast too, Marie-Laure. So we'll have to link to your episode specifically so that people can go listen to it on my podcast.
Yes. I'll let Irina. You're so good at doing all the linking and stuff on the podcast.
Yeah. Send it to me, Sabrina. I'll link everything.
I'll send it.
We'll do the social media for you. Yeah, whatever. I think that's one thing that Marie-Laure and I really want to continue is giving those resources and that support, because I know for both of us, we've talked ad nauseum and we've become friends over the last 6 years. Unexpectedly, one of the best friendships I've had come out of, loss, right? And we both are like, why can't we just have almost like a one-stop shop for links, for all these things, and not have to continuously feel like you're in this rabbit hole of deep dive spiraling and researching and what you experienced, Sabrina. So yeah, send us everything you want us to share.
Okay.
And I think it's really important for our listeners to, because this is also a taboo topic for some people who are religious or political, it's really important that they see these resources and see what TFMR actually is, and that it is healthcare. It is advocacy. It is being a woman and saying what you need. Asking. And advocating for our babies too, because all these babies are very wanted. Marie-Laure's really important. Your story is really important, Sabrina. Yeah, because your stories helped moms like myself. I went through a later loss, but I also dealt with TFMR and I never really realized,
Yeah.
So
yeah. It helps us put words to experiences that can never be described in words, but we try, and it helps. It helps our hearts to hear that other people have been in impossible situations too, and found their way towards the light again.
What do you want every mother listening to hear right now?
I want them to know that you are a mother through this. You are. And you can mother your child forever. It's not the way that we imagined. I think of it as parenting through the veil. We didn't imagine it would be like this, and you can. And anybody who tells you you can't, or you're weird, or it's just a clump of cells, or get on with it, they have no idea. Don't listen to them. Don't listen to them. Come and be with people like us who get it and who want to hear your story. And if you've been looking and you're trying to find the right groups and spaces and support people for you, keep looking. I know that process can be exhausting because there are a lot of not grief informed places and not appropriate for TFMR specifically. But honestly, if a pregnancy loss group says no TFMR talk ever, no abortion talk ever, that's not a safe place for anybody, because you never know when you're going to be in this situation. So it's okay to leave those spaces. It's okay to find the right fit for you.
Yes. Such an important point. If they exclude certain type of loss, that they're not a safe space.
No.
And what you said, I think baby loss in general really gets to your identity, your sense of identity, your sense of self, being a mother. And I think that's something all of us, I know I had to learn it. That people had to repeat to me, your mother, for me to feel like I wasn't, not faking it, but an imposter, right? You had to, and I think with TFMR too, some of how I could a mother do this? How could a parent do that? And I think that is so important to really, I think it's the ultimate sacrifice a parent can make. It's letting your baby go so they never suffer a day in their life, and you take on the pain, you take on that burden so they don't have it. and you're the one living with all the negative feelings that will come, and hopefully work through them so you can heal from that. But I think as parents, I mean, how much else can you protect your own child and letting them go without experiencing pain? And so I thought it's a beautiful thing you're a mother. If you're listening and you lost a baby, no matter the reason, no matter how early or when in pregnancy, like, I mean, for the people, I saw that quote that I love. It's like you become a mother the moment your heart wants a baby. And I think like, even for the people with fertility, like infertility, people trying and start working, you want that baby so bad. You love that baby. Every decision you make, taking your prenatals, going to the appointments, and like, having times intercourse to get that baby. Everything you do makes you like mother.
Yeah. Because the decision starts like years before.
Right.
Planning and loving and waiting and hoping.
Right.
And who does that? Mothers. That's what we do.
Yep. Yeah, getting everything in order to welcome that life. Yep.
Yeah.
And just one last question before we go to like other resources. And what support do you think is still missing today?
The proper pathway for TFMR mothers and parents and the whole families going through this in hospitals and in abortion clinics. There should be a proper pathway with the grief and the honoring and the understanding and the right language for these clients, patients, people. They're people underneath all of the labels. These are people grieving their babies, and that's what I see is still missing.
All right. Oof. Yeah, this is an intense episode. And Sabrina, thank you for being truly uncensored, truly unapologetic in your work, in your advocacy, and saying it's not just stillbirth and miscarriage. TFMR is in that. So thank you for that. I'm actually going to add TFMR into our bio, Marie, on our Instagram, because I think it is really important that moms who have been through that experience as a mom, they feel that our community is safe. So thank you for that call out, Sabrina. I really appreciate that. I think we should just jump right into your resources and what's up for you next. What is something that you want our listeners to follow you for? I know you talked about a lot about your services. Is there something you want to highlight regarding that?
Definitely come and check out the TFMR support sanctuary. If you want to be in community and have these live conversations, that's where we are. And if you want to hear more about how I talk about TFMR and grief, the podcast is always a great place to start our TFMR stories. And a lot of people like to jump into the Facebook group too, just to get a feel for the other people who are in the community and how we talk about things there, while you're deciding if a grief circle would be right for you, the monthly drop-in spaces. So if this is coming out at the beginning of August, I'm also putting together an in-person day retreat in California for TFMR baby loss. So that's going to be in Pacific Grove, California. It's right next to Monterey, California. So that's the Central Coast. And yeah, we're going to rent a little beach bungalow and then do a grief ritual at the ocean. We can walk to the ocean from this place and have a grief circle and meet live. And yeah, I'm setting the time from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. on August 22nd. So anyone who's been through TFMR of any kind, all the different ways that it can happen, is you're welcome. You're welcome to come and join us, and we'll light our candles and say our baby's name or say baby, and maybe it'll even be the first time that you're saying baby out loud. But we'll be there. We'll be there for you.
Amazing. Oh my goodness. Marie, you wanna fly out and then we can road trip up? Because I'm in San Diego, Sabrina, so we can go.
Oh my gosh, please come. Please come.
That would be so lovely. I wish I could.
I'll talk to your husband. We'll figure it out, girl.
Okay.
We'll figure it out.
I'll talk him into it.
I'll talk him into it.
Well, mom is coming to visit. Maybe she needs a trip,
Bring mama. I love that, Sabrina. Thank you for sharing about that. Please send us more info and we will share about that upcoming event. And that's amazing. I want to go. That sounds like so fun. Oceans are my vibe. And I think we'll just go right into our most important question that Marie-Laure and I like to address, which is, what taboo are you trying to break?
The taboo that you chose it, so why are you grieving? Or you don't belong here because you chose it. Saying those things out loud now, they like sound so ridiculous to me. You know, no, this is baby loss. This is your baby. Your baby has died. Your grief is just as worthy as any grief of any kind for any reasons. And you've done nothing wrong.
Thank you for that, Sabrina. Thank you. Marie, is there anything else you wanted to address? I wanted to give you and Sabrina the last word on this because your advocacy from both of you is amazing. And so I'm going to hand the floor over to you before we sign off.
I just want to say thank you, Sabrina, for coming into. I know you reached out to me like right away about this. So one, thank you for the support of this podcast. But two, as Aireen and I were putting it together, I was like, we need to have Sabrina. We need to have Sabrina. Like, you were definitely going to be one of our first guests.
Yay.
Because it worked. I mean, to have for me, first, it's personal. With my own TFMR and you being such an instrumental part of me understanding what I had gone through and finally being able to be like, yes, that's why it feels more than stillbirth.
Mm.
And that all the work that you're doing to help other parents and the community and making sure, TFMR is not a dirty word, a dirty term, that they are safe spaces and educating the lost community about it. I think like some countries, I come from France and TFMR, there's already a term for it and it's usually more widely accepted. We can have a TFMR up to 9 months of pregnancy. The support's not always there, but it's more accepted than here in the United States. But it's so important to get that support, to get the community to see pregnancy loss comes in so many flavors. And so many different ways. And I think many of us have, as we say, TFMR, or at a stillbirth, it was a TFMR. She was a micro preemie. Like, there's like so many places that we could go into. And I think several people who had lost, not just TFMR, I think like neonatal losses can also fall into that. And as you say, like some parents do have to make the decision of end of life after the baby's born. And we just make it before they are born. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for this important work you're doing.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad that you felt supported when I reached out. I was like, oh, should I ask to be on or not? Are they going to have guests? I don't know. And then I was like, I'll just ask because I want to share my story. So I'm glad that you saw that as me supporting this podcast, because it is. And I support all that's happening here and the conversations that I know will come out of this space. And like you said, like it's a continuum and we're all on this awful continuum. And sometimes it happens prenatally, sometimes it happens after birth. And I think some of those families and parents can get the same types of comments that we do. Like, how could you? You should have, you could have. Like, we're already thinking these things ourselves. So bringing on the people who have been through it for them to tell their stories is so important, because these are our stories to tell, not someone else to make a judgment or make an opinion on it. Like, go and look at your own life if you really need some opinions.
Love it, Sabrina. So uncensored. It's so on brand. Thank you so much again. Oh my goodness. Thank you. You're like the epitome of a guest. Thank you for being so unfiltered. Just saying the things that I know that, it's one thing for like Marie and I to say it, but it's also to have a guest come on and share their experience. And so this is why this podcast exists, because there is not a safe space for that. And thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you to our listeners. Please go ahead and follow Sabrina Fletcher on Instagram, join her Facebook groups, and look out for those resources from Marie-Laure and I that are dropping on our Instagram and on our YouTube. Thank you again for listening to this episode of the Uncensored Mothers podcast. And thank you for being uncensored and unapologetic. Bye, guys.